Once upon a time there were two little mice. They were cousins. One mouse lived in the city. The other mouse lived in the country. The city mouse was used to the city. The country mouse was used to the country. They both loved where they lived. One day the country mouse wrote a letter. "Dear cousin," he wrote, "please come visit me in the country." He put the letter in an envelope. Then he put a stamp on it. He knew his cousin would be so excited. The city mouse liked his city life. There were tall buildings and busy streets. He liked to explore the shops and restaurants. There was always something to see and do. The country mouse liked his quiet life. His house was near a big field. He liked to run through the tall grass. He liked to sleep under the bright stars. The country mouse waited every day by the mailbox. He hoped his cousin would write back. One day, the city mouse decided to visit his cousin in the country. He had been feeling a bit overwhelmed by the hustle and bustle of city life, and thought a trip to the countryside would be a refreshing change. It will be a nice change of pace, he thought, as he carefully packed his small suitcase with a few essentials. He imagined the peaceful, quiet life his cousin must lead, and felt a sense of excitement. He packed a small suitcase, making sure to include his favorite book and a camera to capture the beautiful countryside. He also decided to bring along a gift for his cousin. He put on his best hat, a stylish accessory that he thought would impress his country cousin. With everything ready, he set off for the train station. Then he went to catch the train. The journey was long, but the city mouse enjoyed watching the scenery change from tall buildings to open fields. The country mouse was so happy to see his cousin. He had been preparing for this visit for days and had planned a special welcome. He made a big picnic for them to enjoy, thinking it would be a perfect way to show his cousin the simple pleasures of country life. He put out berries and nuts, freshly picked from the nearby forest. The country mouse was proud of the natural bounty his home provided. He even had a little bit of cheese, a rare treat that he had saved for this special occasion. The city mouse wasn't impressed. He had been expecting something more extravagant, something that matched the luxurious meals he was used to in the city. "This food is so plain," he said, wrinkling his nose. He couldn't understand how his cousin could be satisfied with such simple fare. "Don't you have anything fancier?" he asked, hoping for a more sophisticated meal. The country mouse looked a bit hurt, but decided to show his cousin the true beauty of country living. Section 4. Back to the country. The city mouse invited his cousin, the country mouse, to visit him in the bustling city. "You have to see my house," he said with great enthusiasm. "It's much better than yours," he added, with a hint of pride in his voice. The country mouse felt a wave of nervousness wash over him. He wasn't sure he wanted to go to the city, with its loud noises and fast pace, but he knew it would make his cousin happy, and he didn't want to disappoint him. So with a deep breath, he packed a small bag, filling it with his essentials. Then he got on the train, watching the countryside fade away as the city approached. "This is my home," said the city mouse, his eyes sparkling with pride. He flung open the door to a grand, fancy restaurant. They were in a fancy restaurant with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and waiters bustling about. There was so much food, plates piled high with delicacies the country mouse had never even heard of. The country mouse had never seen so much in his life, his eyes wide with amazement. But when he tried to eat, he was scared by all the people, the noise, and the unfamiliar surroundings. He looked around nervously, feeling out of place and overwhelmed. The city mouse encouraged him to try the food, assuring him that it was delicious. The country mouse took a hesitant bite, savoring the rich flavors but still feeling uneasy. He couldn't help but think about his simple life back home, where everything was familiar and comforting. In that moment, he decided that the city life wasn't for him. He longed for the peace and quiet of the countryside. He thanked his cousin for the experience, but explained that he needed to return home. With a heavy heart, he boarded the train back to the country, feeling relieved to be going back to his roots. As the train pulled into his village, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He was home. Section 5. Dangers of the city, dangers of the country. The country mouse was happy to be back home. He had missed the wide open spaces and the freedom to roam wherever he pleased. The fields were his playground, and the trees his shelter. He missed the fresh air and the quiet nights. The stars seemed to shine brighter in the countryside, and the gentle rustling of the leaves was like a soothing lullaby. He told his cousin, "I like visiting you, but I wouldn't want to live in the city." The hustle and bustle, the noise, and the constant movement were too much for him. The city mouse went back to his city. He navigated the busy streets with ease, darting between feet and dodging obstacles. He liked his busy life. The city was full of excitement and opportunities. There was always something new to see and do, but he knew that his country cousin was right. Sometimes the city could be overwhelming. The noise and the crowds could be exhausting. Sometimes it was nice to have some peace and quiet. He found himself longing for the tranquility of the countryside, even if just for a moment. One day, a cat wandered by the country mouse's house. The cat was a new danger that the country mouse had to be wary of. The country mouse hid in his hole. He was scared. The countryside had its own set of dangers, and this was one of them. He wished he had his cousin's fancy city doors. The sturdy, well-built doors of the city would have kept the cat out. But in the end, he knew that each place had its own challenges and rewards. The two cousins met again, each appreciating the other's way of life. They realized that whether in the city or the country, there were always dangers to face and joys to be found. They shared a meal and stories of their adventures, understanding that their differences made their friendship even stronger. As they waved goodbye, they knew they would always have each other, no matter where they lived. Section 6. Be happy with what you have. The city mouse and the country mouse visited each other many times. They learned to enjoy each other's company. They realized that it was okay to be different. The city mouse loved his exciting city life. The country mouse loved his peaceful country life. They learned a valuable lesson. It's important to be happy with what you have. There's no place like home. Thanks for watching my channel. Learn English free.